Hey guys, I'm Devin with ReefDudes, and I'm just on my way to pick up an Apex 2016 model to upgrade my Classic. Now, I have someone's buying my Classic off me next week, so I wanted to be able to have both units side by side for a week and show you guys how to migrate your old Apex over to a new one. Now, unfortunately, there's no quick way to export and import, so it's going to be a little bit of manual work, but we'll go through that shortly. So I'm super stoked to get the new Apex set up, however there's one slight problem. The old Apex was very thin, so it fit in my stand. There's only about a 2-inch gap down there because I'm using my control panel as the space between the bar and the vertical supports on the tank. And the new Apex is about 3 inches thick, so it's a little too big to fit in there. Which means I had to build a whole new control panel, so upgrading my Apex turned into a whole weekend project. Now the one interesting kind of bit is I was slowly merging stuff over, so I actually pulled all my wires out. There's a big rat nest of wires, and I literally started moving devices over one at a time. So I'm going to show you guys kind of how I built my new control panel and how I rewired it, made it all like very clean, crispy, beautiful setup. And at the end, if you guys still want to stick around, I'll walk you through how we actually set up the Apex and transferred it over, connected to Wi-Fi, and got the Apex 2016 going. So I started by unhooking all my equipment. I actually had the two Apexes running side by side for a while. I just started unplugging and fishing wires through one by one. Now, as you can see, it's a bit of a mess behind there and it turned into a rat's nest. But you gotta do what you gotta do. Next, I made templates and did kind of printouts to figure out the spacing for everything and plan my new control panel. So this is where the bottom shelf the battery is, so I make sure there's a bit of room above it for the cords to fit in. Got my driver mounts. Then above the Ecotech drivers, there's going to be a couple inch gap, so there's a hole for the wires for the Neptune controllers, and in order to slide the Ecotech drivers out of the mounts. So you got to kind of make sure you have room if you got to pop your controller off to service it or change a wire or do something. Now the only kind of questionable part is there's a bit of a tab I got to pull out to spin the Apex, so I got to make sure there's a bit of a gap to put my finger in, or maybe I'll put a tab on it, but I'll figure out something with that.
I'm going to make this hole bigger. Sony wire is always a pain to get it through. And I have this little hole to pass wires through, which can be a bit annoying, so I'm going to do a little notch on the top so I can slide them in without having to fish them through. So it should make things a bit easier. And for the front panel, built a little pouch on the back so I can actually fit the controller in it, and wires slide down the bottom. A little bit of hole in the top for ventilation, should be good. This guy has a nice fresh coat of stain, and I'm just waiting for it to dry. I'm going to try hitting it with the hairdryer a bit and see if it speeds it up.
So that took pretty much all weekend, but I finally got installed. Now I want to give a quick shout out to Tanks and Updates for hitting that bell and joining the notification squad. If you want your own shout out, let me know in the comments below and hit that bell. Now if you guys haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do. Every week I'm pumping out new videos, and if you haven't entered yet, I got my 3K subscriber contest for a skimmer. And also if you're not following me on Instagram, I'm giving away a flipper on there, which are awesome cleaners by the way. Now let's take a look at the control panel. I'm super happy how this all turned out. I have the new Apex, it's flushed, it's recessed into the back like you guys saw on the board. I got the two MP40s and Vector driver. I've been debating getting the S1 to run my reactors and everything, so I kind of have my future expansion slot, as well as left another spot there just for future expansion. I do have the Jabo controller that may go there for now, but I'm kind of waiting to decide what to do with that stuff. Now when we go around to the back of the control panel, I took all the power bricks and I 3D printed little mounts for them. So what this does is it holds it on edge. Now originally I used industrial Velcro for it. Sometimes it would stick, sometimes it would fall off. Then I used that metal strapping stuff, which worked well, but it didn't quite look as pretty. So now I have them all on edge, which is more space efficient, plus it will give it more cooling, right? So you only have this one little edge on the back rather than the full side of the brick. So it should keep all the bricks cooler. I also used to have that board to hide it all, which probably held in a lot of heat. So I decided, since this actually looks pretty good, I'm just gonna leave it off. And I actually don't mind that at all. It's kind of nice to see all the wires, easy to access everything. Let me see if I can somehow find a way to make the wires a little more organized, but overall I think it's doing all right. Now looking below, as you guys know, I got my giant battery back there. And I also have, so I got the EB832, which is the new Apex power bar, as well as I have one of my old EB8s. So between the two, I got, you know, a plug to spare, but everything else is wired in. I went through and reprogrammed everything. So I took the old power bar settings and I actually had the dual apexes running side by side for the weekend and slowly moved stuff over one by one. And I also added a few more stuff that I didn't have previously. Like I have this fan over here, which I have now, so it'll turn on if the tank ever goes above, I think it's like 81 or something like that. So just some other little safeties that I added in. One of the cool things with the new Apex is I can do power monitoring. So when the Vectra goes into feed mode, I have it saying if this takes less than 15 watts, turn off the skimmer. There's lots of funky little things like that. Now, I'll go into this in a sec here. If you guys want to see it, this is probably the most exciting part of the video. Now, I'm going to really start digging into how to set up the Apex. So if you guys don't have an Apex, you're not thinking about getting one, you probably don't care. But if you are planning on upgrading, I'll show you guys how to connect it to Wi-Fi and how to set up everything. Kind of just walk through how I copied it all over. So kind of your quick start guide in a way. So if you guys haven't done so yet, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button and that like button. And if you're getting a new Apex, sit back and get ready for the next section. Alright, so I'm going to connect to Apex setup. So it looks like it's connected, and I'll try doing the apex.local. Alright, so it looks like it's loading it. It asks which Wi-Fi we want. So let's go for the 2.4 gigahertz. Once my password, and we'll say connect. Now we wait for a minute or two for it to connect. And there we go, apex.local. So now I'm going to try logging in. I believe it is admin123, maybe 1234. Alright, so we are connected. So here you go, first run, we got the Apex connected. Just heard it swap a couple switches. 1, 2, 3, 4, you'll obviously want to change the default password later. Now if you've used Apex before, this should be fairly similar. The biggest thing that we're going to change on here, now we're going to want to migrate from our old Apex to our new one. Now one of the first things I want to do is link this Apex to Fusion. So I want to be able to control both my new and old Apex, both in Fusion at the same time, so we can start migrating some of the code over. So at the top right here, if I click on the little top one, I can say link Apex. There we go, and that's my Fusion username and password. And link. Oh, so that's why it took me to apexfusion.com. So let's log in here. Alright, there we go. Apex isn't getting power alerts, maybe just reset itself. Okay, now the first thing we want to do is update our Apex. So we're going to go to the little gear icon. We're going to go to the networking. Server setup, so that's fine. Right here, AOS update, so Apex OS update, so I'm going to click that. Warning, temporary community to Apex. Do you want to continue? Yes. So what this is going to do is make sure the Apex is up to date with the latest firmware, and will help make sure everything's working smoothly on our Apex. So we're just going to wait a couple of minutes for this to update, and then we'll move on to the next step. Now we wait for our Apex to update. 6%, 7%. So they have definitely made this a lot easier. Looking at the Apex Classic, it was a lot more cumbersome to update. This, for the most part, walks you in it actually fairly easy. And if you look online at neptunesystems.com/get started, they have a pretty good guide to walk you through it as well. Alright, our Apex is finally updated. Go back in. Everything seems happy. We still got alarm log. We'll check what that is. Sounds good. So we got alarm because our conductivity is less than 32. It's not plugged in, so I'm not too worried about that. Go back to my Apex list. Everything looks good. Okay, next I'm going to set up the name of this Apex. So go back to my Wi-Fi settings. I'm going to go advanced and host name. We're going to call this one ReefDudes. Then you always hit save anything on Apex. You always go that little cloud with the up arrow. What that will do is upload your changes and save them right to the Apex. So now, because I changed that, it's also, if I do this locally, the host name used to be apex.local, now it's going to be reefdudes.local. So whatever you change this to, just remember if you're trying to connect to it locally, not through Fusion, you're going to have to type in that name. Timed out waiting for response. Let's try again. I am on the opposite end of my house from my Wi-Fi. My tank's a lot closer, so that may be some of the issues we're waiting for this. Let's try again. Success, there we go. Worked that time. Back to my Apex list. Now it says ReefDudes, so we're happy. Okay, next we're going to set the clock to your time zone, make sure it's the right time. So back to our little gear, to the clock. Set the Apex clock, sounds good. Time zone -8, it already knows. Daylight savings, done, so we're already set there. Okay, now the probes I'm going to go back to on this one. We'll set these up later. For now, I just want to start setting up some of the modules. Alright, so now let's transfer onto a little bigger screen and get on the computer. I got my classic Apex on the left, and I got the new 2016 Apex on the right. Just so I can kind of see them side by side and set some stuff up. Now, one of the first things I gotta do, because I have more devices than fit on just the EB832, I also gonna have a classic power bar. So I've been going through this list and just trying to decide what I want on the first power bar, the EB832. And the thing you want to think about is which devices do you want to monitor the power from. Because one of the cool things about the EB832 is you can actually see the power draw from each outlet, which is actually pretty cool. So certain ones that probably don't matter, like my CP40 or my MP40s, like I might want to look at it and see what's going on with it. The Radeons, just interesting to see, like same thing. My Radeons are currently through the WXM, but I might just swap them to ReefLink for now. So power won't matter down the road, but for now I'm curious to see how much power draw they have. A couple other things too, like the skimmer could be good to know the power draw if you want to. If something is jamming the pump or something's not working, you get an alert that way. Chater reactor lights. Right now I've been running 24 hours. I may drop it down to 12, 14, or 16 hours. So I'm kind of curious to see how many amps the lights are drawing. Return pump. So because I have the Vectra, which you can't directly connect to the Apex, I'm going to do some stuff like monitor the power draw. So Apex will have a way to know once the power drops, it knows it's in feed mode. And I can use that to turn off my skimmer. So I can do that rather than using a float switch, or maybe I'll have a float switch and I'll have multiple ways to do it, right? So it's all about redundancy. And the same thing, the second heater will be in there. Now a couple things I don't care as much about is not the reactor pump. That pretty much never turns off unless I'm playing with changing the media. So I mean that will be on the old energy bar. The stand LED, that turns on automatically when I open the stand. The frag LED, same thing, that's controlled through the EcoSmart Live, so I'm not worried about it. Microbubbles, that's minuscule power. Ozone, same thing. I'll plug it in temporarily to see how much power draw it has, but I'm not too worried. I probably have more devices I'm not thinking of, but this is a bit of a start. So the first thing I want to do is kind of just start by copying over some code. So the first one, it's already called lights. I'm just going to change this to my order. So I'm just going to call this MP40s. I do have two of them. Maybe I'll call them MP40s. Good enough. 2.1 icon. Let's get a little pump in here. So I'm just going to change this. So because this is all done through the Apex, I'm going to change this to advanced. And I'm going to say set on, fall back on. So if EB8 loses connection, it's going to be on, set on. So I always want this to be on. There's no reason not to have my power heads on. So there you go, same thing. That, upload. So the easiest way, if you do have your Classic and your Fusion both side by side, is going to be go through stuff one by one. Alright, so the second plug, let's do the CP40. So that's link, so lights 2.2, just going to double check this. And off. So a nice way to check is you can see the lights on the power bar. So we're going to change this to advanced. So at one point I did have this shutting off at night. I think I'm actually going to leave it on for now. So I'm just going to fall back on, set on. So this is always on. So really it doesn't make much of a different point having this on the EV8, so it's not really controlling it. However, I can use it for alerts. So once I know the wattage, I'll be able to say if wattage is less than what I expect it to be, then send alert type of deal. So we can do some cool stuff that way. But at the current point, if something that's always on, to an extent, you're kind of wasting an outlet, other than if you're using it for alerts. So something to keep in mind as you're deciding what goes where and setting it up. Yeah, so right now it's just set to always on. So, all right, what's next on our list? We lost our little notepad. So the Radeon, so same thing, that's going to be always on. Now I'm going to probably do some follow-up videos. I'm going to go some more advanced kind of coding and doing alarms and setting stuff called power once I actually get the Apex set up. Right now it's just sitting on my computer desk, so I'm just kind of prepping some of the stuff for it. All right, so here's my lights. Time, so if the tank is too hot, then turn it off. If the time is 9:30 to that. So I don't know how much power the Radeons draw when they're not actually connected. So I was previously physically turning off the outlet just to save a bit of power, maybe a complete waste of time, but I guess now we're gonna find out. Let's bring my notepad back. So Radeons were on number 3. So that was 2, 3. Let's call it Radeons. Alright, next we had heater 1. Now one thing to check, they have it in Fahrenheit and I had mine in Celsius, so I'm just going to see if this works out too. So this is 76.4. So they run their tank a bit hotter than mine, but I'm going to go with what I had because it's working well. 77. Now the other interesting bit will be if I put this temperature probe in, I'm curious to see how close it will be to the ones that are currently in the tank. Now while we're on this, so heater 1, so heater 2 is going to be on 2_8. Call this heater 2. And on my setup, heater 2, 24.8, so set 0.1 of a degree higher than the other one was. So heater 2, this was 77, 24.8, so 76.6. So if it's more than that 0.1 of a degree, they'll both kick on, otherwise just the one will go on. Now another thing I did too, I have 2 heaters on my tank. So it kind of works as a backup. So I have, instead of one 300 watt heater, I have 2 150 watts. And that's kind of for redundancy. So if one skimmer if one heater gets stuck on for whatever reason, then that means I don't have to worry about it frying my tank. And on the flip side, if one heater doesn't turn on, the other one should be able to, for the most part, keep my tank going. And same thing with that, if I don't see it turn on for an extended period, then that will kind of alert me, and I'll figure out how to set those alerts later. Alright, so now we're on to port 5, which is going to be your skimmer. We got a return pump. Now this one should be always on. Sadly, they still don't let you have too long of numbers. Alright, so return pump on. Back to the dashboard. Now we have our return pump, so it's return P 2_6, 2_7, and so back to the skimmer, which will be 5. Now we just saw it change color, so it's happy. So one thing we do have in here, defer 5. So what this means is once the return pump turns back on, it's going to wait 5 minutes for turning on. So this will give it time for the system to kind of stabilize, make sure everything in the sump is level. I'm actually going to change this to 10 minutes now. So once I do feed mode, which is 20 minutes long, then it's going to wait another 10 minutes before it turns back on. Alright, so the skimmer's set. What's left? Return pump, Chaeto reactor lights. So that will be on 5, 6. We'll stay Chaeto lights. Might as well change it to a light for fun. And change this to advanced. Actually, let's try light. Let's try turning on at 10 p.m. and off at 10 a.m. Let's see if let's do it this way. 10 to 10 for 12 hours. Shutdown probe. Sure, if the tank gets above, let's say 79. Leave it at 82. And upload. Alright, so our basic stuff is set up. The rest of it, we still have to calibrate the probes and hook up some other modules and likely update those, but we're going to wait till that's on the tank. Alright guys, I think that wraps it up for today. If any of you guys actually sat down and watched the whole thing to the end, I just want to say I am impressed, because that's probably my longest video ever. Now, if you did, that means you're obviously digging your Apex, you're starting to either wanting to get one or wanting to figure out how to do some more advanced stuff. I didn't get too advanced today, but if you guys do want to know how to do something specific, let me know in the comments below, and I'll be sure to make a video on that for you. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this, hopefully gave you guys a better look at upgrading your Apex Classic to the 2016 or just getting an Apex in the first place. So yeah, if there's anything specific that you want to know, let me know in the comments below.